Hey, 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 welcome back to Goals and Greatness Podcast, your weekly dose of business banter, big ideas, epic fails, and the systems that make the dream work with your favorite duo, Kat and Lou.
Double the expertise, double the fun. I'm Lou, your navigator on this wild ride of risk-taking and rule-breaking.
And I'm Kat, your go-to guru for all things startup. Together, we're unzipping the secrets of success and taking you behind the scenes of our crazy world.
Whether you're a CEO in the making or you've just scribbled your first business plan on a napkin, we're here to fuel that fire and help you unleash your greatness to achieve those big, bold goals.
So entrepreneurs, visionaries, and everyone in between, get ready to join the ride with Kat and Lou. Let's turn up the volume and unleash your greatness. Hey, y'all, we are back. And we are super excited to chat with you guys today about retention. Yes, this is, I would say, probably something we're both pretty strong at, very strong at. And I really, this is actually going to be a two-parter. We're going to do part one now and part two next week, because, when you really look at retention, people ask, like, how do you retain people so long? How do you, like, I have such a hard time, like so many different entrepreneurs that I work with and people that come to me for consultation or coaching clients of mine, they say one of the biggest problems that I found is either how do I hire great talent? But then for those who do, like, I just have turnover all the time. How do you keep great talent? Right. Like, and so those are two different components that I get asked questions about, but they're like, I just feel like I just don't know how to keep great people, hire great people, and, or keep great people, right? So, like, how do we retain these? So I actually gave a message last week. I was asked to speak to GoBundance about this. They're like, we need you to come speak on hiring and retention. Like, we need help with this. And so I would say there's two aspects, as I mentioned. Number one is the hiring process. Number two is the management that happens post-hire, right? Like, what happens in that whole process. So that we're going to hit on next week. So yeah, I was thinking we could start with hiring. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. And by the way, for those who don't know, when we were working together, I remember one thing that we were really proud of was every single year we had people who would just come back to work with us. The nature of our business was like high turnover. People would come in and out all the time. And I remember in 2016, which was like our biggest year working together, our entire team that we had for the first half of season, where people would normally be like rebuilding or lose most of them, everybody stayed from the first season to the second part of the season. And it was like crazy. So I would say we're pretty good at this. And if you get retention down, you're going to be able to get productivity down, which I'm sure will be another conversation later on. But
well, yeah, say and share some of the benefits. Talk to that real quick before we go into hiring. What are some of the benefits of retention? What have you seen it create?
Well, I definitely see it create a better culture. And, I know we just talked about culture, but one of the cornerstones of having great culture is having people that do stick around and can carry that culture out on a daily basis. I mean, it's common sense. If you have somebody who's with you for a long time, they're going to adopt that culture that you instilled from them in the beginning and continue to bring that to your organization on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for however long they're with you. So you're just more so creating more, like, I don't want to say like more versions of you, because everybody's going to bring different things to the table, but more advocates, more ambassadors of your mission in your company, which helps productivity, which helps then retain more people. That helps you add layers to your business. We talk all the time about getting freedom from your business. Retention is how you do it. There's no
100%.
way.
100%.
What about you?
If you ask me, like, how do you define, like, what does retention mean to you? I would say lifestyle and freedom. Like, that's my answer, right? Like, retention is lifestyle and freedom, because it gives you more space to focus in your genius, right? It gives, like, you have people that have been around, they know how to do it. They're excited about growth. They're excited to show you, like, that they can beat your numbers, or, whatever it is, that they can do it without you, right? Like, that they can be trusted with more responsibility. And so as you retain people, it allows for more space for you to have. I mean, I remember at a certain point in the business where you were like, get out of here, we have this. I'm like, okay. But it really does, like, you know, when you retain people for a while, you have more experienced people, right? Like your business moves quickly through those stages. When you have brand new people, you have an infant staff, let's call it. Maybe your business is an infant, but you have an infant staff. You have to kind of be there, right? Baby them, answer questions. They don't know how to respond to customer service requests or to clients, or they might know how to do a pitch or whatever it might be that's happening. They're like, right? Like I was at a restaurant the other day, or no, what store was I? I was at a store. This happened in a restaurant too, because I was like, is this good? She's like, I don't really know. I just started. I'm like, okay. You know, where if you have an experienced waiter or waitress, you're like, oh my gosh, that's the best. Like, honestly, one of our most sold dishes, so is this one and this one. They're absolutely amazing. We're like, hell yeah. Right? Like they're going to create more business in that, and customers that come back because it's like, oh my gosh, they were just so great and like had such a great experience, right? Like I was in a store and I asked like, oh, where do I find this? And she was like, I don't know, maybe check with customer service. And I'm like you work here. Like she had a badge on, right? But then you know, she's like, I'm sorry, I just started, right? So that's what happens when something's like brand new, right? Like you don't have that longevity. Like you as an owner can't just leave because they're like, I don't know what to say when they ask me shit, right? So you have to be there more. But as you retain people and they've been there a while, they've had repetition with you, with others, whatever it might be, right? In that training process, which we're going to talk more about, you know, next week with like, because that's part of the retention piece is like the training and management aspect, right? Like we'll hit on that. But now you have someone who's been there for a year, 2 years, where they know the ropes, they know how to do it. They don't need you holding their hand, right? Like they're like, I got this. And so that's why for me, like retention is lifestyle. It means freedom. It means I can go do things with my family and not stress because I know I have an experienced person who cares about the business, who's excited about growth, who knows what they're doing because they've been with me for X amount of years, you know, and that makes me be like, okay, cool. It's under control. When I have someone brand new at the helm, I'm like, oh shit, you know, like I am not, you know, I'm anxious, I'm stressed. I'm like, I can't go anywhere. They don't know what they're doing, you know? So anyway, it makes a really big difference when we're doing that. So random, you know, tangent there, but
no, but for sure, absolutely. And as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, you know, just going back to like the ambassadors of youth thing is like, let's say there was a new person that didn't know what they were doing. But when you have like so many people in your organization walking around speaking the same language, people are able to learn a lot quicker. Like I remember a lot of the stuff that I learned in the beginning was just like multiple people saying the same thing all the time. So like the more little, again, not like little U's because you don't want like clones, but more people repeating the same message and the same vision in your organization, the quicker the new people will learn also. And so how do we get there, right? So we're starting with hiring. How do you even start? Where do you start, Kat?
All right. So I would say step one, I mean, you guys are going to hear me say this so many stinking times and like probably anything I talk about, because I believe that anything we do starts with vision. Like, are you clear about what you want, right? If you're not clear about what you want, it's very hard to get it. So, you know, for me, when I really understood this and wanted to start building layers and really wanted my organization to be built without me, I had to really look at some things, because here's the fact is that when you start a business, like if you're a solopreneur, right, or you start something on your own or with a partner, if you don't have it built out, it can be years. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so burnt out, right? Like you get burnt out so quickly because you're doing everything yourself, you know? And so it's very, very important to make sure that we are taking time to be able to sit and say, when my business is an adult stage, what do I want it to look like? Right. And by the way, right now, I might be doing all the things, that's fine. But too many business owners are in year 3 or 4 or 5, and they've never done this. They've never taken time to go, okay, when my business is in adult stage and I can go on vacation, do whatever, like, what does it look like? What's the infrastructure, right? Like who reports to me? Do I have all these different departments reporting to me, like accounting and marketing and, you know, whatever it is, like people development, training, like whatever departments your business needs and has, like the department heads, are they all reporting to you, right? Some people, like that's their structure. Not me. I didn't want that. I wanted all those department heads reporting to one person, my main operator, who reported to me. right? And so for me, it was like, okay, I want one person that reports to me, and that person, I'm going to coach them and I'm going to show them. And in my early years, everyone was reporting to me because I was that person, right? Until I found someone to take that role, I was that person. But again, this is your business matured. What does it look let's say the recruiting department, there's the advertising, right? There's the interviewers, there's the whatever. Okay, in the advertising, there's different sectors. There's someone that's handling maybe campus relations and trade shows, right? They set up booths, they go to events, they go to whatever. There's a social media, right? And that's part of recruiting, but it's a totally different sector. And someone oversees the social media, the messaging, the ads, the whatever, right? So just getting really specific with that. And like I said, you're like, well, I don't have many pales. That's okay. But like, do you know what you'd like it to look like? Because if you never identify, it's going to be a lot harder to ever get there, right? And if you want to build a business that's built to last, or a business that you can sell, a business that's going to last generations to come, like you have to build that infrastructure, or you're just going to burn yourself to the ground. Okay. So I think that's step one, Mary Lou, is just like, can you sit down and say, what does my ideal corporate structure look like when it's matured, right? And start there, so that your brain has a clear idea of like what you want, and you can start finding those people now and filling those roles, right? And I don't know if you remember, we used to have that in our Cutco business, right? Where we had like what we wanted our district to look like, and we're like, all right, we want this, and we want a recruiting manager, and we want a sales manager, and we want branch managers running their own offices and district, right? Like, so those, like, from you seeing it, or as you've started other businesses, like anything that you would add to that in terms of like just that vision part?
I think you nailed it, but what I do want to add in there is like the major why behind that. I think, you know, for sure, like if you have it there, then you know exactly the direction where you're going. But I think when you have everything written down and you know what you want, it makes it that much easier for you to communicate that. And one thing we always used to talk about was creating buzz. Like people need to know what they can work toward. And I remember we used to sit down with our staff and walk through it with them and show them like, these are the positions that we want to fill. You know, let's make sure everybody knows and everybody's talking about it, because when people have something to fight for, you know, going back to our theme of retention, that's what helps them stick around. And for me, that's what helped me stick around, like your organization, was knowing that I always had something else to work toward. And then when I didn't have anything to work toward, then it was my time to move on, right? So
Yep.
and that took me like 8 years on, and then 2 years like in and out. So I mean, that's a pretty long time for a 17-year-old.
Yep.
And so yeah, so that's just what I would add. It was that why behind it. It helps create a conversation around your office and gives
Well, yeah, I
people
think it's
something to
two
think
parts.
about. Yeah.
Because I think it's for you knowing like, okay, it's not going to be like this forever, and knowing like
Mm-hmm.
what you're looking for and what to promote to people, like what vision to create for others, right? Hey, here's where we're
Right.
going. Here's what we want to build. Here's what it's going to look like. And you hit it right on the head, saying the part of like, now from the user side, right? The person who's applying or potentially working for your company, they're like, oh, wow, there's opportunity for growth. Like this is a place where I could see myself like advancing, or there's just there, it's not a dead end job. And so when there's like that next thing to go for, that whatever that carrot in front of them, that is a huge factor for retention. And so I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is, you know, when you are actually hiring and people see that, hear that, they're like, oh wow, there's like room for growth, there's room for advancement. Like people want to be somewhere where they can grow, you know. That's a very, very positive thing, because you nailed it again right on the head when you said like, once there's nowhere to go, it's like, all right, it's time for me to go, right?
Yeah,
Because I
and
want more.
yeah, no, we can talk about troubleshooting another time, but anytime that I've always had like a turnover rate, or I'm like, you know, why isn't this position or whatever, thinking, like going back to the user perspective always gives you the answer. Like, how are people perceiving this? How are people understanding this? You know, what is it that's causing a disconnect of like, why aren't they getting the message? And I think that's like, if you were to even I bet you like 8 out of 10 people listening to this right now, if you looked inward, your organization, and asked that question, I bet you a lot of it has to do with like the lack of vision. Like people just don't know. They just don't know what they're working for.
Mhm.
So Yeah.
you know?
So I think having that
It's
user
amazing the
perspective helps
moment that
you.
you bring that up and you're like, oh, we're looking into this. It's like, oh, really? Like that's possible.
Yeah.
And where they go find another job, now they're like, oh, excited to grow here, right? And so that so transitioning from that, I would say, so now we have like, okay, here's what I want. So let's say now you are ready to hire, right? Because one, it's
Uh-huh.
like you're starting your business. What does that look like, right? And knowing it, I think it's important, for you. But then also, like you said, for those that you are going to be hiring, so they know what's available. But now it's like, okay, what do I need? Too many times I've seen people just hire a great person because they're a great person, but they're not looking at their org chart. They're not looking at what do I need, what roles needed to be filled, what capacity. And so my next thing that I always coach people on is to make sure that once you have identified the roles that you need, or whatever your next hire is, have you identified what is needed for that role? What attributes, what characteristics, whatever it is, that they need. Have you actually taken time to really look at that, right? And I know we've talked a little bit about this before. And can you pause real quick?
Yeah, and Kathy, just to add to that, one of my business mentors always tells me like everything's just a math problem. And I think how that relates to like hiring and retention and knowing the roles that you want to fill is that I feel like also a lot of people just put roles on paper and characteristics of the role of those roles of things that they don't want to do. But remember that everybody that you hire has a dollar amount, and every position needs to bring you ROI in some way. Like you have to have ROI. You can't just say, well, I hate filing papers, so let me pay this person $8 an hour. Like, look at it in two ways. Those $8 an hour of that person doing something for you, are they bringing more money back into the organization because you can work on the business more? Like everything just needs to have a purpose. Don't just, because also that hurts your retention too, because you're just having somebody there and it's not really like fulfilling anything. They don't feel like they're contributing to the team. But when people can see how they're bringing something back into the organization, that keeps them around. I'm sure we're going to talk about that more later on, especially through like recognition and all that stuff. But just knowing those rules, and then how that ties back into what you were talking about, like having the right person in place, putting somebody in a role that matches them as well. Like if you just put somebody somewhere where it's the actual job doesn't match something that matches their personality, you're just going to be killing their spirit. And you talk about this all the time, like somebody who's like super fun and bubbly and like the socializer, and putting them in an administrative job, like where they're locked in a corner and not talking to anybody, that's just going to kill their spirit and make them want to quit.
Yep.
Right. And we've seen that time and time and time again.
Yeah. They're gonna be miserable, right? Like you brought them in and you're like, oh my God, what a great personality. Like I'm so excited. And you put them in the wrong spot and they're like, I hate my job, and they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
So again, like if you want to retain people, put the right people in the right seats. So having that clarity of what do I need for this role? What characteristics, what traits, what skill sets, and then are they coachable, right? You talk about this too, of just like they don't have to have all the skills, but like do they have enough to do the job, and are they like coachable so that we could get them where they need to be, right? Because they are someone I love being around. They are someone that has the personality type needed for this, and they have blank percent of the skill set already, and the rest is very teachable, right? And so knowing like what are the non-negotiables needed for this, right? And they might just be a couple non-negotiables, they might be more, it depends on the role, right? And just being very clear about that, because it makes it so easy to find the person when you know exactly what you're looking for, and you can weed out all the ones that are not good by knowing, no, I need someone who's this type of personality, whether you use Myers-Briggs, or you use the DISC profile, or we use core values index, or there's so many different personality types, but really knowing like what is the type, what is the primary personality drivers that I need in this position. And that makes it, just so much stronger. It makes everyone so much happier because, I experienced this firsthand, and I'm like, this person is awesome. I'm so excited, for them to run my business and run the operations. And I put them in more of an operator role. And this person didn't have good attention to detail, nor liked it. This person didn't like bossing people around or, being in charge. This person, like, they love socializing, they love chit-chatting. And so once we looked at that, it was like, oh, we need to move them to be like the head of recruiting, to run interviews, to chat with people all day, or, do some of the sales training. And like, they thrived in that. They did not thrive in an operator role. And so again, really important. And sometimes people will come that you might interview and you're like, man, they're just amazing. And I feel like they would be so good for our culture, and I want to speak to that and just say, I think it's okay to create a job for someone new if it brings you, like you said, the ROI, right?
Mhm.
And having someone be the vice president of fun, could be a great ROI for your team. If you're like, man, we really need to keep spirits up. We really need to make sure that we have, we have team night outs, we have culture happening, we have things like, and I want someone that's like really making sure people are feeling good to help them stick around. And that is bringing an ROI to your business, because if not, you would have lost those people because they don't feel that sense of community, and maybe they needed that, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say to that, but I would just say, it's okay
Yeah.
to create a role if it's going to bring you
Mhm.
business that maybe you weren't thinking about and you just really love somebody. But don't just hire someone for a role because you love them but they don't match what's needed.
Yeah, I mean, that happened with me with the produce company. I was looking for a salesperson. Like, I really needed a second salesperson. I needed to be able to delegate a portion of our client list to somebody, because I needed to, I was going from like toddler to like little kid, and I needed somebody to now man my sales, and I just needed that second salesperson. And I found a really, really amazing girl. I mean, she was incredible, and I was like, she's awesome. But I knew that if I had her in a sales position, that she was just gonna fold, because she wasn't a salesperson. But I was like, man, I can't lose her. So instead, what we did was we basically instituted like a new, almost like a new product program. We took a piece of product that we wouldn't normally have in inventory, and she had great marketing skills. Like, she could put together the most beautiful flyers, was great at executing and organizing campaigns. She knew like metrics and KPIs and all this stuff. And we were able to add a new product to our inventory. And I told her, hey, like, you don't have to be on the phone with people. Like, we'll give that to our sales girl. She'll handle all the calls coming in. But if you can get people calling in about this product that's not costing me anything right now, and I can sell it for blank, like, that's what I want you to be in charge of. And she was fired up about it. And she was with us for like the duration of the company's existence. And she was just really excited. She was able to put her marketing skills to use. So, sometimes it also takes pivoting when you find that right person. Like, okay, maybe you have this role that you envisioned, but now you found this person that you really like. What's a way that you can rework this, where maybe you can take something? And that was the other thing too, was that she actually was able to take off some of the admin work from my other sales girl plate, which that sales girl, amazing with people, amazing closer, amazing at sales, not organized at all. Like, I'd have to fight her almost daily, like, hey, can you enter this stuff? And then when I brought this other person in who was like, basically, I'm going to get you more leads, and then she didn't care to do admin work, so she took over all the paperwork. It was like if I had got that second salesperson, So sometimes adjusting just to have somebody who fits your mission and your culture can really bring a lot of value to your organization as well, and obviously retention. So yeah, that would be my little bit there on adding people to
Yeah,
your
and I was going
team.
to ask you, what are any other things you've seen in terms of making great hires that have helped you or you've seen be helpful in our organizations in terms of, like someone's like, okay, well, now I'm gonna hire somebody, right? How do I know I make the right hire, or how do I, like choose, or I don't
Right.
know, right? Have all these different applicants. What do you look for? And so talk to me a little bit about that, the
Yeah.
actual
So
process. They're going to interview now.
yeah, so I actually work a little bit in corporate recruiting right now. So I actually have a lot of clients asking me this question all the time. How do I know that it's going to be the right person? Especially because a lot of them are hiring salespeople. And I always give them two bits of information. The first one is look less at what's on, and I know it feels like it's not right, but I promise you that this is a good way to like have a marker or like a rubric, is like, look less at their resume and less at like education, years of experience, and ask more behavioral type questions that that where you can ask them actual situations of things that they're going to encounter in their role. So instead of looking at, you know, this person did $2 million at their last company in personal sales, you know, you don't know what that sales process was like. You don't know, you know, how those people sourced their leads, what their leads were like, what the clientele was like. You can ask those questions, but it's really not going to tell you much unless you were there. But a way to kind of simulate something that would happen in your business is to give them a situation, ask them how they would respond to it. So behavioral type questions. One of my favorite things to ask people is, in any of your positions, when something went wrong or didn't go well and you received criticism, how did you respond? And if you didn't respond well, how would you respond now? And see what that feedback is. You can tell a lot from a person on how they respond to criticism. And I would even try and give them criticism when they're in the interview and see how they take it. Again, a lot of it about finding the right person is finding out if they're coachable, because I'm a big believer in not everybody needs to come to you with 100% of the skills, but they need to be willing to give 100% of the effort, and you have to be willing to coach them. So if you like them and they show you that they're coachable, give them a situation in an interview, give them criticism, see how they react to you. You know, don't do phone interviews. At least get on Zoom so you can see physically how they react, because it's really easy for people to mask that feeling over the phone, but you can look at their face and see if they took that and like it hurt them, or if they took that and they understood it.
Say so
Yeah,
much.
it's huge. And that's why I always tell people, like, don't even screen on the phone. Get them in front of you. You know, take those extra 3 to 5 minutes to get them video with you. And if you can get them in person, even better. But like in today's day and age, sourcing nationally is going to get you, or internationally, if you have that capability, is going to get you a bigger and better talent pool to get people from. So at least a Zoom meeting. And then the second thing that I'll tell people is, don't be afraid of using different personality tests. I know in Cutco we used to use CVI a lot, but you know, there's DISC, there's the DISC, the Myers-Briggs. And in general, what you're looking for and what those things tell you are a lot of these behavioral type things. So if you don't have access to all that stuff, at least ask the questions in the interview. Now I know for you, like,
you can also do like, sorry, with that, you can also do like, so I love the, you know, those different behavioral questions, but you can also like give them like a task to do as part of their interview process. So you can say, like, depending on what they're applying for, and you're like, hey, I'd like for you to record a video of you answering blank question and send it. Like, this could be their initial screening, like, so that you see, like, can this person follow instruction, right? What do they look like on camera? And you can say, you know, first step of the interview is record yourself answering blank question or doing this, send an email over to blank email, put blank in the subject, give it some detail, if that's something that, so that you know that they're like on it when you give instruction. Because for me, you know, I talk a million miles an hour, and I'm like giving you the next 3 things before you're finished with the first one, and I'm like, okay, and then when you do this, and you're like, okay. So if you, for me, when I'm hiring, I need someone that can, like, if I rattle off, or hey, I need you to do da, that they're like, boom, that they can really like follow instruction and move quickly on things, you know. So I want to test that, right? And so you can do that by giving an assignment or instruction for a screening process that's due by blank. And if they haven't had it done, I'm like, that's not the person for me, you know, because they drop the ball when they're trying to make an impression. Like, forget it when they already have the job. You know? So you want to be careful with that. And so those are cool ways, and it can be different things that you have, again, depending on what role you're hiring them for. But I think that's a really powerful thing, is giving scenarios of how would you do this, or giving tasks or assignments to see how they follow instruction, or both, right? To be able to see, is this someone that I can work with? Is this someone that, and some will go above and beyond, and you're like, oh, hell yeah, right? Like, this is amazing. More than I even asked for. Like, that's a home run for me. So anyway, I just wanted to add that to that.
No, I love that. I love that, because in a recorded video, you can also, like, if you have a business partner or you have a head person, you could share it with them too, and you guys can look at it together. And that's another great way to retain your top people, by the way, when you include them in decision making. So I love that. I love the video. Yeah, so love the video. And yeah, so that's my, I guess, my bit on, you know, hiring people, making sure that they're the right fit. So now you have your vision. Now you make sure that you have the roles that you want to fill. You're sharing that with people. You're trying to make sure that you have the right people on board by doing these thorough interview processes. What's next?
Well, now it's the training and the management aspect, right? Which I want to, I want to dive into that, next week's episode, because that gets into some nitty gritty for sure. But, if you do this part, you have to do this part right, because it makes the next part so much smoother and so much easier when you've done the hiring process, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure, I'd say let's tie a bow on this week, and really dive into that. But the next step is, okay, now what does the training look like? What is the ongoing training look like? What does the management of people look like? What does the recognition of people look like? What opportunities do they have to advance, right? Like all these factors. And so again, we'll discuss that, I think, next week, if you're cool with that, because that'll take me another, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes, an hour on that topic.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a meaty topic and one that I'm excited to explore. So yeah, are you ready for a quirky question?
What's the new name of it? The quirky question. Let's do it. Whack
Quirky
question.
questions with Lou, or
I love it.
wacky. Oh, okay.
You're quirky. Let's go with it.
Let's go. I find that people get to know our personalities really well when we ask these silly little questions. So here's one you're really going to enjoy. So your dream, like if you were to put not in super mega detail, but like your dream vacation, not destination, because it could be multiple destinations. What would be like your dream vacation? What would you do?
Okay, so this is great. There are so many things to do. So one, there would be definitely a nature component. Like I want to be in nature. And
Yeah.
typically for me, it's more tropical. Like I'm a Fiji, Bali, like clear waters, Caribbean, like, somewhere epic in the world, Greek Isles, chilling out there in one of those secluded beaches. But definitely crystal clear water, white sand beaches. There's definitely food, lots of food all day, all sorts of yummy food. My vacation ideally would have some kind of a cooking class component. I love learning. I love eating the food of the area, but I also love learning how to cook it, because I want to be able to like redo it at home. There's definitely dancing, music, dancing, like nightlife has to be an aspect for me. Yeah, and people I love. I think for me, it's food, food, nature, and dancing are my, key things that are part of my vacation, and getting to see like different epic, secluded places in the world, like nature.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely we've done the Summer Olympics. I definitely love to do the Winter Olympics one day. I think that would be really cool. So we got to plan that one since we did the last one together. We also didn't get to go see soccer. So I'd like to go to summer just to go see soccer. By the way, there's a story with that one. We paid for the tickets and they were fraud. So yeah, we didn't get our tickets, but at least we saw like the beach volleyball. That was super cool. But anyway, got sidetracked there. I would say my dream vacation, aside from like the Winter Olympics, I'd love to go to Lebanon and see like where my family's from. I've heard that like Beirut, they used to call it like the Paris of the Middle East. So I'd love to go and see it, love to go try some food. And even maybe go up to like the mountainy area. I have some family that is from
Now we
there.
weren't talking locations. All right, I want to go to the Pacific.
No.
For like,
but I said it doesn't have to be a location,
okay.
But you can mention because I said it could be multiple. But I also haven't been like other places in the Mediterranean. I mean, I'd love to go to Greece and Italy.
Mediterranean is my favorite place in the world, except that I still haven't done the Pacific. Like I want to. That's my dream. My next dream vacation. I've already told my husband we're going in 3 years. Is I want to spend 6 or more months in the Pacific and just go explore, like a little island
on a boat in the ocean, or
no, absolutely not. We will take a boat out all the time, every day, but I will not live on a boat. I am too motion sick. no, I want to live in Bali for a couple months. I'd like to stay in Thailand and for a couple months, and from there cheaply travel all around the area, check out the different islands, go to the Philippines, check out all those islands, and just spend some time over there. So that is my next like big epic dream vacation that I've been wanting to do, and I can't wait to. A couple years away.
That's awesome.
It'll be our
We'll
10-year
have to-
anniversary. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. That's one to knock off the bucket list. Yeah, I think that's super cool. RIP to when we were supposed to go to Tokyo and then we never did, but I'd like to go there one day too. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks for tuning into it.
Tell us yours.
Oh yeah, tell us yours. Tell us your dream vacation. But thanks for tuning into another episode of our podcast, Goals Greatness Unleashed, and we'll see you guys next time.